Hello, James. What a pleasure it is to meet you and speak to you about your new film, King of Kings. Now, you provide, I think there's about five voices in the film you provide. I think it's Melchior, I think there's three of the disciples, and a young Jesus as well. So, with all those voices, where do you start with, deciding on the voice for each of those characters?
Yeah, well, thank you first off for having me. It is a pleasure. And I should say, as my friend Obi Wan Kenobi, hello there, because it would be appropriate. It's actually, I play about eight characters in the movie. I'm credited, I think, about six times, but they've been saying the ones. So in one scene, I have a conversation with myself. As voice actors, we tend to do. I spend my days in little padded rooms talking to myself. So when I'm Melchior, who is, of course, one of the wise men that brings frankincense to the baby Jesus, I'm also the scribe to King Herod, who's voiced by Mark Hamill, who's also another Star Wars alumni, of course. And so I'm in that voice there talking, yes, let me tell you about this. And then Melchior's over here and they talk to each other. So you have to hear a lot of different voices in your head and you want to place them in spots where the next one won't sound too much like it. The trickiest part is with the disciples, as you mentioned, Matthew and Philip and Thomas, because I don't want any of them to sound too much alike. So Matthew is a little more in here and kind of in my lower range, and I kind of chose this, kind of texture to it. And then Philip is pretty much me, and then Thomas is a little more of like if you take Michael J. Fox. Whoa, wait a second, Doc. You mean to tell me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean? You take a little Woody Allen or a little Paul Giamatti and you combine them and you get this doubting Thomas fellow. It's just about kind of finding the voices and the tones and the textures and mixing them all up. And then, of course, young Jesus, which the challenge there is how do I take Oscar Isaac, who has this wonderful kind of calming voice, very similar actually to like Johnny Depp, who I've voice doubled for many years. And then you take that and you make it younger. And so what would he sound like at the age of 12? And so it's just playing with tones.
Now, I understand that the whole film started sort of around about 6 years ago with you yourself doing what are called scratch tracks for the film. Now, for anyone who's not in the know about that, can you explain what scratch tracks are and the genesis of the project?
Absolutely. Great question. Yeah, I don't think most people do kind of realize how it works. And so, yeah, 6 years ago, I was called into the studio. They had the film. I think they've been working on it a total of 10 years now. So they had been into it 4 years of just trying to get, animation and such. And they needed to be able to present the whole movie to investors and things. So they'll bring in somebody like myself, a voice actor, and I'll do Charles Dickens' voice and Jesus and all of the apostles and pretty much everybody's voices to give them a way to start animating, start showing people what the film is going to look and feel like, knowing that they then eventually will want to get celebrity names in just because, of course, celebrities bring a draw to people, wanting to come in and see it, as well as their performances. Sir Kenneth Branagh does an amazing job as Charles Dickens, and of course, Oscar Isaac. We've got Forrest Whitaker, Uma Thurman, Sir Ben Kingsley, amazing as Caiaphas, and Sir Pierce Brosnan. I mean, so many wonderful actors in this film. But before all of them, yes, I was providing what we call scratch tracks of the whole thing to give the filmmakers an idea of what they had.
Now, you've got an absolutely huge back catalogue of films and voices. You've mentioned Obi-Wan, you've mentioned Michael J. Fox, Woody Allen. I think you do Chris Walken as well.
Christopher
Um,
Walken, yes. When they need a little cowbell and Chris isn't able to do it, I come in. Simon, I do the voice. But it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
well, I was going to say, with those voices, is it not a temptation to give those famous voices to characters? Because I can imagine Christopher Walken as Herod.
Oh, see, that's very good. Um, yeah, I think there is absolutely that, and sometimes it shows up if you listen. In fact, in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, we did that quite a bit. There was a character I did back in the day on that called O.C. Sobek. And our director, Dave Filoni, at the time, he called up and he said, James, what would Christopher Walken as an alien sound like? And so I did various versions of him. And then he said, it's too spot on. Let's pull back. And so what I did is I combined Al Pacino with Christopher Walken.
So you got a little Al Pacino right there and Christopher Walken here, and I combined them to get O.C. Sobek.
And so it was a kind of a fun way to pay homage, but also combine them both to create a voice.
Christopher Walken does seem to be the most popular voice for everyone to have a go at. I mean,
Yeah,
I won't because I can't do it, but it does seem such a popular voice to do.
yeah.
I was just going to go sort of a little bit off topic now. You've always been very open about your faith as a Christian, and I kind of wonder, uh, have there been roles that you have turned down because they've been it's been a conflict to your beliefs?
It there has been. I think the general rule that I've kind of had is I want to do things that I could watch with my daughter. Now, of course, my daughter's 20 years old now, but and she enjoyed. We went to see the movie together, and we had a lot of fun. But that was always the general rule in doing video games and stuff. Video games probably more than anything because of the content of them. Sometimes they're overly violent or the language is it, and so I have always felt like, okay, how can I be salt and light as Christ called me to be, but also still maintain the integrity of my beliefs? Sometimes there has been some shows that I've worked on that have been a little more adult content, but I felt I believed in what the people were doing. Or the other thing is sometimes you get cast and you don't know what the content is, and that's happened to me several times. And I had to make a choice. I had to, choose: do I say I'm sorry I can't do this, or do I say I'm going to do this, but so you know, this is where I stand. And if I have any questions or if I want to make any changes, will you let me? And if they agree, then we kind of come to a conclusion that, okay, I'm doing this to be as much light as I can to people and still, respect the content.
Now you've got over, I was having a look at it, you've got something like far in excess of 300 credits as a voice artist, as an actor. Of all the roles that you've done over the years, what is your favorite voice and role, if that's not the same thing?
It's, I get asked that, and it's always really hard. It's like choosing children, right? You can't choose a favorite. So I say this, I say, whichever one I'm doing at the time.
So if I'm doing Obi Wan Kenobi, well, of course, Obi Wan is my favorite. If I'm doing Jedi Master Plo Koon, then he's my favorite.
If I'm doing Johnny Test, he's totally my favorite. If I'm doing Gingy, the gingerbread man, not my gumdrop buttons, then he's my favorite.
If I'm doing Fred Flintstone, he's my favorite.
So whoever I'm doing at the time, I just really am incredibly grateful to God for the opportunities I've had, because I've wanted to do this since I was 4 years old. And to get to be a voice actor and create characters like this has been a dream come true for me. So I try to be grateful for each moment and say a prayer of thanks, but to make each one my favorite.
You've certainly been given a great gift there
Oh,
with
bless you.
voices, James, because it's quite phenomenal. Quite something. Thank you ever so much for your time. King of Kings is I really liked it. I think it's quite an interesting take on what is a traditional or what has been in the past a traditional telling of the story.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of the cool part of what they did. They found a unique way to get into the story by using the Dickens story, which of course is based on The Life of Our Lord, a book that he wrote back in 1846. It wasn't published until 1934, about 64
Yeah.
years after he passed away. So I don't know if he ever could have imagined that it would have been taken and turned into a story like this, but it certainly is a great vehicle for us to enjoy the story of Christ without, I think, being very kind of, heavy-handed. I think it just basically tells the tale and lets you see this unfold. And it's really great, though. I love again what Sir Kenneth Branagh does with the character and such, and then Roman as Walter. And then even my friend D. Bradley Baker sneaks in there as Willa the cat. Now, D, you would know from Star Wars: The Clone Wars, he was the voice of every single clone, but he has this wonderful ability to be creatures. And so in movies, a lot of times you'll hear these creature sounds, and it's usually D. Bradley Baker or Frank Welker, these two just amazing actors. So kudos to them as well.
Excellent. Thank you, as I say, for your time, James, and I very much look forward to your next body of work. Thank you.
Oh, bless you, my friend. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.